She's way more than just a variant. We're talking about Professor Xavier's psychic evil twin, Cassandra Nova. Hi, I'm Nando, and in this series, I take a character from Marvel Comics, I talk about their backstory, their power set, their personality, and I give you some reading recommendations. And this is all because this week, this character is being introduced into the collectible card game Marvel Snap. And also, the week that this releases, a couple days ago, will have been when the Deadpool and Wolverine movie released, which heavily features Cassandra Nova, although without knowing everything about the character, I'm willing to bet they're making a couple of changes. But okay, so Cassandra Nova in the comics. What is she? Because you will probably hear her described as an evil twin. I imagine, because the TVA seems to be involved, and because that's just the vibe of the multiverse saga, Cassandra Nova in Deadpool and Wolverine will be some sort of variant or something like that, right? She'll be a universe where instead of Professor X, there was Cassandra Nova. She was born instead, and she had lots of telepathic and telekinetic powers that she used to fight everybody or whatever. And then she got banished to the void. I'm just guessing here, but based on the way certain storylines have been somewhat kind of flattened to fit into the Marvel Cinematic Universe, that feels like what they'll do there. And that makes sense because originally that was kind of how she was explained in this story. It took a while for the actual solid Cassandra Nova origin to stick. But what we eventually got somewhere in the new X-Men 120s is this story. So the Shi'ar, the bird-themed alien race that Lilandra, Professor X's long-term girlfriend, is from. They have a concept. It is a spiritual entity sort of thing called a Mamadrai. Now, I've never seen this word pronounced, so I'm not sure that is it, but you can read it. Here are the letters on screen right now. Mamadrai, something like that. It's an alien language. Maybe none of those letters are right. I don't know. But it basically is described as like light and dark, up and down. It's the opposite thing that exists when another thing is created, and they kind of both have to, you know what I mean? It's very yin and yang. It's like these two complementary forces. So usually, according to the way it is explained in this comic book, every person when they are born or when they are in the womb has a Mamadrai that is just in there, and it's like their evil self, and they have to fight and kill it. And what that usually seems to amount to is like it being a little spirit, and then I guess by being a baby and surviving, you do kill your Mamadrai. There's usually not much more to it than that, but if you're really, really special and really, really smart, like baby Charles Xavier, in the womb, your Mamadrai is also so powerful and so smart that it manifests its own body, creating an actual twin. So again, this Mamadrai having an actual body, very unusual. Only happens with Professor X, basically. And Fetus Charles recognized that this twin was evil, so in the womb, and we've seen this fight scene play out a couple of times in comics, but it always looks the same, the two fetuses fought, and Professor X won, Cassandra was stillborn, and then that was the end. Now, I am very unclear on this next part, but from what I understand, Cassandra Nova was able to reconstitute this body because her consciousness was so strong. And by the way, the twin was named Cassandra. Nova is just another name. It could be, sometimes I feel like I've seen her as Cassandra Nova Xavier, but either way, she's essentially his twin. So she gestates for a while and comes up with a plan. And this is the plan that happens in E is for Extinction. This is one of the most significant X-Men comic runs of all time. Spoilers for X-Men 97. This does kind of happen in X-Men 97, although without Cassandra Nova, but pretty much all of the other important parts play out the way they do. So Cassandra Nova first appears in the year 2001 in New X-Men number 114, written by Grant Morrison with art by Frank Quietly, Tim Townsend, Brian Halburn, and Comic Craft. So in this story, Cassandra Nova is this mysterious figure who you're supposed to see and recognize, like that kind of looks like Charles Xavier. And she tricks the descendant of Bolivar Trask into helping her activate the Wild Sentinels, which is a Sentinel program that had been existing out in the jungle for a while, doing its own thing, and it had been able to kind of create new kinds of Sentinels because it was using the trash from old ones. So that's why these were dangerous and unusual. So Cassandra Nova used the Trask DNA to turn these things on and set them to the mutant nation of Genosha. And they did a big genocide, a big old mutant genocide. There was 16 million people, and as far as at the time, that was the biggest one. I'm sure, well, I don't know. Is Krakoa more than that? I don't know what the full population of Krakoa was. It's possible that this is the biggest mutant genocide that's ever happened, although I could also be convinced that Krakoa is about the same, but a lot of characters are killed here. This is famously where Emma Frost, a character that up until this point had been just a telepath, got her secondary mutation, the ability to turn her body into diamonds, or a flexible diamond-like substance. Apparently this is something that Cassandra Nova had planned. This all gets explained in the Astonishing X-Men run, but to keep it simple, Cassandra Nova does that. The X-Men come find her, they take her back to the X-Mansion. At this point, the X-Men are Jean, Scott, Beast, Wolverine, Charles, obviously, and then Emma is around because Emma did survive Genosha, and at least she doesn't have anywhere to go. So she's hanging around with these guys. And Cassandra Nova manages to use her incredible psychic powers to basically take down the X-Men. But it ends with her getting her neck snapped by Emma Frost and then getting shot by Professor Xavier. Now, what we didn't know at the time was Cassandra Nova very cleverly transported her consciousness into Professor Xavier at that moment. So then she takes over Professor Xavier, starts acting all weird, reveals she's a mutant to the world, which is something at this point they didn't know, and then goes and hangs out with the Shi'ar so that she, the evil Cassandra Nova version of Professor X, can like destroy the Shi'ar and then bring them back to Earth so that they can kill all the mutants. Now, why does Cassandra Nova hate the mutants so much? Why is this a concern of hers? She's, I guess, kind of a mutant, right? You would assume she is she has a mutation, like she is a Mumadrai, but she only has powers because she's a Mumadrai of a mutant, so I would assume she also has the mutant gene. Well, the thing is, because she was killed by a mutant in the womb, according to Cassandra Nova, she hates mutant kind overall. So this is punishing Charles for killing her all the way back before they were even born. So there's a big fight, a lot of fun moments here. One of the bigger ones that I love, and I've used this description a lot to talk about Gladiator, because Cassandra Nova is so powerful and she's such a powerful psychic, she can really read your mind and like break you down. Gladiator, a character that works specifically, he's powered by confidence, he's a Stronian. As long as he believes he is strong enough to do something and he has the will, he's able to do it. She's able to like reverse that and go, yeah, but you're not strong. I know that, and you know that, and you're not good. So, you know, you don't have any superpowers. And he just pees his pants and she leaves. Also, if I said Emma Frost instead of Cassandra Nova once or twice, like, you know which one I mean. It's the one that's on the screen when I'm talking about him. I can't help it, especially now that I'm kind of talking, because their stories are very intertwined. I wouldn't say Cassandra Nova is like Emma Frost's nemesis. I would say if you had to pick somebody, it's either Selene or the Black King or someone from the Hellfire Club, like Sebastian Shaw, when she's a good guy at least. But I think because Morrison obviously took Emma Frost in a very interesting direction and at the same time introduced this new character, Cassandra Nova, they made sense as like foils for each other. Kind of also because like Cassandra Nova is the evil version of the good guy, right? She's Charles Xavier, but all of the negativity and stuff and hatred and whatever. Whereas Emma Frost is the good version of the bad guy. There's all that negativity and all that, forcing that to do good. So that's why I think these two characters make so much sense next to each other. And by the way, Cassandra Nova, way more powerful than Emma Frost, who is another telepath, who is usually regarded as like one of the more powerful telepaths, but like Cassandra Nova has to be in the top 10 Marvel telepaths. I would have to imagine. Because if you're saying like Professor X is up there, I'm trying to think of who else would even be up there. Like Legion would probably be up there. Yeah, like if you're gonna put those guys up there, and she's not as powerful as Professor X because obviously like he has lived longer and has a mastery over his superpowers, but like she's got that basic, just intense mutant power. So I don't know. I guess it's hard to fully put into words what her powers are and what she can do because again, she's kind of an evil psychic entity, but she can do a lot of stuff. Basically, what I mean is, if her and Emma Frost are in a room and Emma Frost's like, it's you, Cassandra Nova, and they both put their hands on their foreheads so they can use their telepathy at each other, Cassandra Nova would beat Emma Frost, no question. But Emma Frost is clever, and that's why she's able to actually beat Cassandra Nova in this encounter, where Cassandra Nova is going to use Cerebra to kill everybody, like she's going to kill all the mutants, just like in X-Men 2. Then Emma Frost tricks her into getting into her own body, but actually that is a mutant shapeshifter named Thing, I believe? No, it's not Thing. It's even stupider than that. Stuff. Stuff is the name of that guy. And it's like a mutant plasma guy trap thing. So Cassandra Nova for a very long time is stuck in that protoplasm being thing, and Jean Grey and the Professor go in to educate her. So like, this is not a character who has only shown up in this one time, but this is easily their most iconic story. They did the E's for Extinction, you know, massacred everybody on Genosha. They messed up the X-Men big time. Like, and part of what is interesting about Cassandra Nova, like I said, she has psychic powers, but what her psychic powers usually end up doing is make you do your opposite of what you do. It's a little easier to nail down when she comes back in the Astonishing run, because she is able to disable every member of the team by turning Beast into a Mega Beast guy. So they take this most civilized member of the X-Men and take out his wild side. And then on the other side, the way they are able to disable Logan is by taking out this less civilized member of the X-Men and then making him so civilized that he does not know how to fight as a big Wolverine guy. So that's the thought process there. Like, for instance, let's pick somebody who she has never fought. To my knowledge, if she were gonna mess around with Iron Man, she'd make him real dumb or something like that, or really cowardly and not confident, so none of his armors would work. Like some version of that. It's like kind of this. It is this yin and yang, that Hayatu kind of philosophy. So like I said, she's come back 3 times. I would say there's 3 other Cassandra Nova storylines. One is Astonishing X-Men. That is the Joss Whedon run that has a lot of great things in it. Like I think is not as transformative, especially in terms of like the lore and the culture of the X-Men, but I think is, as for some people, fundamental like X-Men run, because it came out when they were children, which always really helps. And I think it is one of the more accessible X-Men runs. I would say that's the thing with the Grant Morrison stuff. I love it. I think it's great. But I understand why someone picks up that book and goes, what is this? Like, what are we doing here? Whereas Astonishing X-Men, you see it through Kitty's perspective. Yes, a lot of the villains are like Ord from the Break World. It's like, who's this guy? This is not Magneto. But I think that story eases you into a lot of that, maybe in a way that I would say is a little bit more accessible than Grant Morrison. Now, that being said, New X-Men 114, like, read that. It's the best X-Men, besides maybe the new Hickman stuff, which she does appear in as well. So Astonishing X-Men, Emma Frost, who's now with the X-Men, she's dating Scott. She's like a very integral member of the team, starts doing all kinds of subterfuge and is apparently working with a cabal of villains, including Negasonic Teenage Warhead, a character that at the time I believe we thought was dead, Sebastian Shaw, leader of the Hellfire Club, and Cassandra Nova. Now, I'm not going to go through exactly what happens in this story, because I think the story is interesting. I think there's a resolution that is clever. This is a very Emma and Kitty-centric storyline. The very short version of this is Cassandra Nova, as almost a failsafe, was like, I'm going to put me in your brain, Emma Frost, so that I can trick you in the future into getting me out of this weird goo prison that you might put me in. So at one point, she tries to enact that plan. It doesn't really work. So her other 2 big events, one, X-Men Red, the Tom Taylor book. She comes back. It's complicated. I don't know what the good explanation is for where she came from. Because like I said, she did not exist. She still should be in the goo or whatever. But I would imagine the way you would explain this is just she's so powerful that she can, like some characters, just will themselves back into existence. Again, without spoiling this story, one thing I think is really funny is the way that you end up fighting Cassandra Nova, because she's such a powerful telepath, and because of how this has been so woven into the DNA of the X-Men comics because of the movies, the helmets. Yeah, everybody gets a Magneto helmet, and they give everybody a Magneto helmet to fight it, which I think is pretty funny. And it's funny because they also paint him the same color. Like, they're like, well, obviously yours is purple and red. Captain America, you get one, and he's like blue and red, purple and red. Everybody gets purple and red. And for people that don't know, it's only interesting because that was never a thing in the comics. Magneto could totally have his mind read by Xavier unless he had, like, you know, fortified his mind like Wong yells at you to do. And that is usually how that works. He just has too much will. Xavier can't just control his mind because he's too strong. But when they were making the first X-Men movie, at one point, one of the writers said to one of the other writers or directors, they were like, hey, why doesn't Xavier just make this guy fall asleep? Like that, he shouldn't have a problem finding this guy. And why isn't he just get him? And they decided, oh, well, the helmet, something about the helmet actually protects Magneto from Professor X's telepathy. Sometimes it's been described as like actual wiring in the helmet. Sometimes it's like the kind of metal. I don't know what the explanation is now, but that is something that came fully from the movies. It was never a thing. But anyway, back to the story. Cassandra Nova is using these Sentinites, which are like little micro sentinels, to kill mutants without getting into all the hows and like going over every single event. This book ends with Cassandra Nova getting defeated by having been given empathy, and then it just breaks her brain. And she's like, oh, not a bad guy anymore. Now I totally get it. And it's, you know, this big moment for her. So she's only made up really one more big appearance. This was during Krakoa. Now, You may not know all of the stuff about Krakoa, but basically it's a magic island kind of sentient, mutant island thing that all of the mutants moved to, and like Professor X, Magneto, Mr. Sinister, everybody teamed up to turn into this paradise for mutants. Part of the deal with it was that if you were a bad guy, so like Apocalypse or Selene or someone like that, or even Mr. Sinister, although we'll find out not quite as much as you would hope, you would just kind of be good. If you were at this island, like you would feel so chill. You wouldn't even want to do, genocide the humans or whatever. You'd just be like, man, it's great. I'm going to open a bar. And you would. And that was like all the characters that worked for them. And this is even the case for Cassandra Nova, who we do eventually find on Krakoa. She's part of the second Marauders run. Kitty needs to recruit her to do what is a very complicated story that has to do with time travel and the first mutants and stuff like that. It's where that one variant of Kitty Pryde holding the box comes from. And this one ends by they defeat Cassandra Nova, and she's a good guy in this. Like, she's totally on the team. But Marauders is a Kitty and Emma story, so they both extra hate Cassandra Nova for that time. She used them both to try to free herself from the goo. So not the first Cassandra Nova story, but that second one. I think it's called the Bug Room. It's weird. So they end up like saving the day and also just leaving Cassandra Nova in the past, in like the far, far, far past. I don't know if there have been any consequences from that, but like a lot of Krakoa stuff, like this happened in this big wrap-up Fall of X storyline, so I don't think we've really looked back to, what else is Cassandra up to, or has all of that stuff that she did in the ancient past actually had an effect on humanity? Probably not, but maybe, and maybe we'll find out in like 10 years. I would say I wouldn't be surprised if because of Deadpool and Wolverine, this character's profile is raised significantly, and she does become a big presence in the future. A lot of the times that's how this works in the comics. I will say, she was never in any of the movies or anything like that before. The storyline, E is for Extinction, plays out over the course of this season of X-Men 97, the first season of X-Men 97. But without Cassandra Nova. But Sinister and Bastion and all the other villains are doing what she did. So even though this video is going to be released after Deadpool and Wolverine is released, I have not seen Deadpool and Wolverine yet because I record these about a week in advance. So I don't know everything about this character in the movie, but let's just say, without spoiling it and like without going into specifics, based on what we kind of know from the trailer, Emma Corrin appears to be playing a young-ish version of Cassandra Nova, who seems to be in the Void, which is basically the trash can where the TVA throws out all the variants and things that they have to prune. We've seen this many times, mostly in Loki. Like, we've seen it a lot of times in Loki. She appears to be living there and appears to be, running some sort of like mutant wasteland group, like Mad Max style team of a bunch of the other villains from some of the other X-Men movies. I'm imagining, because Loki is all about variants and the multiverse, and now we're in the Void and we're doing TVA stuff. I have to imagine what they'll do is just make Cassandra Nova a variant of Professor X. Like, here's my guess of what we'll get. There'll be this explanation that Professor X had a twin that died in the womb. And, in every universe, nothing ever amounted to that because we never found out who that was or like learned anything about them. In the one universe where she survived and Professor X died, that was Cassandra Nova, and she's basically his evil twin. Like, I have a feeling that's what we'll get in the movie. And maybe she can like control Goliath with all her psychic energy the same way that the Lokis can. I don't know. I'm not really speculating in that regard. It seems like this Cassandra Nova is going to be doing something a little bit simpler than, well, I don't know. I mean, we really just don't know what her plan is. I doubt they're going to do E is for Extinction, for the second time in this year, but maybe they'll do something similar where she does want to just wipe out all of the non-variants. It's unclear. We really don't know what this character's up to. Besides the fact that she's, got a little bit of like attitude, a little bit of that swagger that you would expect from a supervillain in these movies. And, she seems to be having fun with it, sipping tea, making Wolverine flip his claws around. But people watching this in the future are like, wait, she turns out to be this. Maybe. I don't know. It wasn't clear when I made this video, which is today, which happens to be the 22nd of July. Happy July 22nd, everyone. I would say personality for this character, it's pretty close to that. Like, Cassandra Nova is just pure evil, like cackling evil, like maniacal. And it's because she's not just like a supervillain. She is an evil psychic spirit monster thing. If I had to pick 3 books to read to understand Cassandra Nova, I would say I'm going to skip everything from Marauders Volume 2 and everything from X-Men Red. I would say you want to read 1 book of Astonishing and 2 books of New X-Men. I would say New X-Men 114, which is her first appearance, helpful. Good sense for like where we started with this character, because she's not very, it's not clear what her deal is. So I would say the other best issue, and I just say mostly because this is a good issue, is New X-Men 121. This is another one like the last one. This is written by Grant Morrison with art by Frank Quietly, high def design, and Richard Starkings. And this is Jean Grey and Emma Frost taking a trip into the mind of Cassandra Nova. There's almost no dialogue, it's a very trippy issue, but this is the issue where you see Professor X and her fighting in the womb, that iconic panel. Like, I would say you could read only this New X-Men run, like from 114 to whatever, like 125 or something like that, and like that would be the best story. And the third one would be Astonishing X-Men from 2006, this is issue 13. It's written by Joss Whedon with art by John Cassaday, Laura Martin, and VC's Chris Eliopoulos. In Marvel Snap, Cassandra Nova is a 3-cost 1 power with the on-reveal ability steal 1 power from each card in your opponent's deck. This makes sense. She is a psychic parasite. That's obviously not, she's not like a life-stealing psychic parasite, the same way that someone like Selene is, but she is a, parasitic entity. So of course she's going to attach herself to your opponent's deck and then steal 1, life force for each one. A card she's going to work really well with. Korg and Rock Slide, characters that put rocks in your opponent's deck, so then you can depower those and then get the benefit from them. That's huge. Obviously, she's going to be an amazing counter for Arishem, because if your opponent has 4 cards in their deck, then, you're getting 4 power. That's nothing great. If they have like 15 cards left in their deck, you're getting 15 power. This card is incredible, and now all of those cards are a little less good. So I think that's big. Obviously, she's not going to be as good when Luke Cage is in play. She'll be powered up with Ajax. I wouldn't say she's incredibly effective against Emma or Kitty. I guess she kind of works with an evolved Cyclops, where she can also, drain power from cards. But I don't know. I feel like there's not a ton of cards that she works incredibly well with. I think overall, she's a very strong card. Also, the Deadpool Diner event is how you get her, apparently. Very cool variant in there. However, I would say, and I've been hard on Marvel Snap for this, so I'm going to give them credit. The variant that is not with that is the Kale New variant. This is from the cover of one of the Marauders books. This is Cassandra Nova and then Eric the Red behind her. Such a cool image. I love that one. I have a feeling that is going to be a lot of people's default, especially because getting the variant is probably going to be a lot of work. She's going to be good against Thanos, solid on a Surfer deck. Overall, I think he's a very good card. I'm glad to see her in this. She is a pretty significant X-Men villain. I like that she's getting the spotlight in this Deadpool Wolverine movie. I have no idea. It seems like it might be one of those versions where, like, if you're a huge comic fan, you'll be like, oh, she could have been so much better. But on the other hand, this is clearly a good way for people to get introduced to this character. And then, hey, oh, look, that Grant Morrison book, that looks pretty good. And then you pick that up and you read it and you love it because it's like the best. So thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed these videos, I put them up 1 week early on Nebula. So if you're watching this on YouTube now, that means the video's on Nebula, at least the Hawkeye Kate Bishop video. I might have that one and I'm having trouble with this one. Do you put both of them out the same day, like the Kate Bishop and then the Marvel Boy, because they both come out that same day technically, or do you space it out? Do you do one in the beginning of the week, one at the end of the week? I don't know. I'm figuring that out. But either way, you're 1 video early. Also, if you want to watch my Magneto and the Brotherhood of Mutants pitch video over on my Nando V Movies channel, that is also up early on Nebula. So if you've never used Nebula before, it's a really good way to get access to my videos early, watch them without ads, and all kinds of other cool stuff. But if you want to check it out, go to go.nebula.tv/thenandocut and look at all the wonderful stuff that we have to offer. Like I said, next week, Kate Bishop and Marvel Boy, we're doing the Young Avengers. These are about to get much more complicated, but this is characters that like everybody is way more familiar with. Besides Cassandra Nova, like these last couple guys, like Hydra Bob, if you ask people like what are the odds they've read a Hydra Bob comic in their lifetime, like pretty low. But if you ask someone like what are the odds they've read a comic with Kate Bishop in it, like those are pretty high. So I do think that we're really gonna hit the ground running with Kate, and she's like a fan favorite character, and then Wiccan, and then a month of Young Avengers, and then you know what we're in for? Madam Web. We're gonna do some Madam Web stuff. I'm gonna have to do a video about Madam Web, and that'll be fun. But anyway, enjoy these videos, share them on social, enjoy the Deadpool movie if you have or have not seen it, depending on when you're watching this video. That's all I got. Stay safe. I'll see you next time.